Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the PCN Podcast. My name is Dorsey Fricall, and here with me tonight is Rio. We've also got Shamrock Slacks, King Terralic. I'm sorry, you just told me I'm a son of a bitch. Kaz and Capone. How's it going, everybody?
Good. What's up, man?
Yeah, it's going pretty good.
Well, we're going to go ahead and start things off in Super League. We got two teams that have kind of separated themselves early on. Inter Milan in first place with a perfect 8-0 record, 22 goals for, 5 against. Really strong defensively, but Kufavelli and Stride, each with a combined 12 goals and assists. That partnership is really flourishing, giving them the goals they didn't have last season. So can they keep it up is kind of the question, I guess. They've only played 2 of the top 9 teams in the table so far. But I do know they finished real strong last season, and they've definitely got a great squad. So do you guys think this is a team that's going to maybe fall off once they get into a tougher patch of the schedule, or can they maybe go ahead and win this title?
Okay, so Stride is definitely an upgrade for them as striker because him and Kufa have similar play styles, so it kind of blends really well. As I think that as of right now, I think it will be too early to call if they can win the title, but their play style and their talent, they can keep up with anybody. So I don't think when they get to the second half of their schedule, I don't think it's going to affect them that much.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think they're kind of going to fall off because if you look at their previous fixtures, the teams that are near the top or the middle, they only beat 1-0. All their blowouts are against lower teams.
Yeah, and I do think their offense against better teams isn't going to be as productive, but I think that defense is legit, and I think that's a big key to, I think, any title race is having a defense that gives up less than a goal a game.
Yeah, when we played them, it was actually a lot closer than 3-1. I believe the third goal came when we threw everybody forward to try and get that tie. They looked real solid when we played them, but starting off this way, I'd rather be peaking later in the season than early.
Yeah, but it's also like River Plate last season were like 20 wins and a draw. And although they were really not great the second half season, just having that buffer is what carried them to the title. So, every point matters at this point in the season. And
for Inter, like Dorsey said, their defense is legit, but also when you have a DM like Jamie or his caliber of player, I'm not counting anything against him because he stops everything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, pressure's on Inter. You guys are the leader in the clubhouse, but you got a long ways to go. Behind them, chasing them down, is Minnesota United with a great debut here so far early in Super League. 22 points, second place, 18 goals for, only 4 against, tied for the best defense in the league. Only drop points this season was to Tottenham on that first opening night for the marquee matchup. I think you could definitely make the case they've got the strongest defense in the league with some of the players they've got listed and just the way they've been performing early on. And I think offensively, what's going to come down to is, can Eric keep up the scoring load? He scored 11 of their 18 goals so far. Kessie, Retro, Jakub seem to be the people who are assisting him. But I think long-term, they're going to have to find goals from somewhere else because there's going to be those games where they're scoring troubling to score even one goal. So that's going to be the difference, I think, for me, is if Kessie and someone else.
Yeah, that was the problem at River Plate last year, which essentially is half of this team. But that was the problem is that last season Eric wasn't really that much of a shooter, but we had games where didn't nobody really want to shoot. And Minnesota's problem, they have a worse problem than River Plate did. River Plate had people that were selfish enough to take these shots. Minnesota has a positive-negative problem. They have a lot of unselfish players, but they're not selfish in the right reasons. Eric, we know Eric loves to shoot, but lately he's been kind of iffy. I don't know if it's FIFA or if it's changing his ways. We know Kessie's unselfish. Chubbs is unselfish. Jakub, Retro, they do their thing on the wings. With Thiago plays Cam, who's also unselfish. So Eric is literally the only guy that's taking shots. So in big games where it's 0-0 or 1-1 in like the 80th minute, somebody else is going to have to take a shot because sooner or later people are going to start doubling Eric.
Yeah, anybody played them yet? Have any kind of analysis on them?
Lazio played them, and we came out to an early lead, and then Eric made magic happen with 2 really quick goals, and they took the game from us. They played really strong.
Minnesota plays essentially how anybody that plays foot wants to play. It's the quickest 1-2s, the easiest 1-2 runs. 1-2s in the box for a through ball, and it's right there. And if you know them, you know what's going to happen. The problem is they're that good with their passing to where you can't stop it. And if you put any of those guys that I mentioned in front of the net, just with them and the goalkeeper, it's going to go in.
Well, so I think early on, those are your two kind of favorites, but I think there's a group of about 6, 7 teams below them that, if they pick up form, can easily get themselves into the title mix. So we'll start off with AC Milan, and really, I think, impressive third place so far after getting moved up to Super League pretty soon before the season. So great start to the season, 16 points, 7 goals for, 8 against. Definitely a good strike partnership between Chronic and Smokebreak, who I happen to be lucky enough to have on my late night team, and really good goalkeeper and Vegetable. And I think the entire squad is just kind of filling itself out. I think Quad's done a great job building that team even stronger than it was last year in League One, clearly by their start. Just really impressed by them overall.
I was gonna say, I think Milan is buying into the whole, we didn't, depending on who you ask, we didn't, in quotations, we didn't earn the Super League spot. We was given it due to technicalities. But they took the negativity, and then the squad just, they took it, put the head down, and they're just running with it. And they're basically trying to let all the people that say, oh, you didn't deserve this, you shouldn't have been given this, prove them otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah, we've played AC Milan, Benfica, Lyon, PSG, and New York City already this season, and I'd say AC Milan up there with one of our most football games on Inter. We scored at the very, very last second, but they pretty much ran us for the first half for sure, and they gave us a run for our money. In a lot of ways, we were lucky. So they're putting their best foot forward for sure.
They are. We had a tough run against them in the preseason cup, and then the first game of the season lost 3-1. Definitely good. I'm excited to see how they do kind of going forward. And slotting in right behind them, tied on points, just a little bit of a worse goal difference. Benfica have been an interesting team so far. So this is another team that kind of got moved up late. They were going to beat Chelsea in League One. But I think what you're really seeing this year is, this season more than you have maybe ever, is that those top 20 teams in Super League really are just kind of a class above, and it's such a deep league this year. So Benfica's had an interesting season. They got 16 points as a good start, but they haven't had the toughest schedule. The last two they played were Atlanta and Inter, and they got a draw and a loss. They've only got 7 goals for with 8 against. So, and 5 of those were kind of an unfortunate situation against PSG. So clearly a team that's got a very strong defense, but if they're not playing the toughest teams, they're not scoring more than about a goal a game. I think that's where you're going to see downside for Benfica. And if they don't get some goals, they're definitely going to slide down the table a little bit.
Benfica, like Dorsey said, strong defense, but just as strong as the defense is, the offense is slacking, because 7 goals in 8 games is, correct me if I'm wrong, the worst in like the top 11, the top 12. So it's them their defense is definitely keeping them up on the table, but keep in mind, to be fair, 5 of the goals came against PSG, but it's besides the point. They're still not scoring enough to where, and they're not even playing in the strongest team. So it leads you to believe that they're going to fall down once they start playing the tough competition.
Yep.
Yeah, one thing, this is my second full season in Super League, and one thing that I've noticed that you have to have is consistency. It's a long season, and any small dip in form can make or break your. And just like you're seeing, they're pulling off these early results. They're playing what's quote unquote not as good teams, but they're still beating them. And right now they're up top. But if they can keep it up, then and keep winning games, next thing you know, we're having a different discussion. But if they do fall off, you can see them dip pretty fast.
Yeah. And the whole group from 3rd to 9th is separated by just 3 points. So I think these teams have all shown enough early on that they're definitely going to be in contention for Super Cup qualification, which is just top 5 this season. So I think having that back this season, I think that'll give those teams fighting in that range a lot more emphasis and kind of motivation as the season goes on. So I think you'll see, kind of the current top table it's a lot of the teams I think that'll finish there, but I think there's a lot to be determined in terms of the order. And hopefully that starts with my team sitting there in 5th, Manchester City. Hopefully we can move up as the season goes on. So 21 goals for so far, second best offense, 15 against, not great. We seem to get ourselves into a lot of shootouts, score a goal, concede a dumb goal, concede a second dumb goal, come back. It's a lot of the things that happened to us last season. Maybe dropping points against a couple teams we shouldn't have, conceding goals we shouldn't. But we do have a kind of a whole new back line, new DM partnership. Kermit hasn't been available for as many games. So I'm thinking we'll get things figured out. Offense is scoring. Chemistry's been better than it was at the beginning of last season, but if we don't get the defense sorted out, I think it's going to be hard for us to really move up.
I think you guys will obviously bounce back. It's a long season, and the last game's always in the top tier. But 21 goals for, I know Inter has 22, but 21 goals for is incredible. But 15 against, these shootouts are so interesting. I really wish we could see some of them, but there's not here or there.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's been a decent start, a little bit better than last time. So as long as we stay in the mix, that's kind of our hope. Is eventually we can put a good run for them together. And speaking of that, I think Atlanta United over there with you, Casbone, you guys have had a pretty good start. 6th place, 15 points, 14 goals for, 10 against. Need to find a way to turn some draws into wins. And I think it's just as the talent gels there, the chemistry improves. I don't know. I think you guys could at least match last season's Atlanta United finish in 5th, if not maybe push on. How's the season gone for you guys so far, Kaz?
I mean, obviously we have really high expectations this season with, some of the guys that we put together. I think I heard Rio mention on the last podcast, having Louis Makino in your offense is always a good thing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these draws, I feel like we could be undefeated had we turned a couple plays here and there our way. But, complete opposite of you guys. We're sitting in low-scoring games, scoring 1-2 goal games. I'd rather peak later, and like to think that we're still building our chemistry and that offense is going to explode. A lot of these guys, it's our first time playing together. We got an early start in the offseason, but I still feel like it's still starting to come together. Me and Nunzi have that CDM partnership. It's our first season together. The entire back line is new together. So there's a lot of moving parts that hopefully will come together.
Yeah, and despite what a lot of people want to say or think, no matter how much practice you get in division games, all that is nothing compared to practicing against another full 11 in a friendly. So that's really when you get the chemistry down.
Every team's different in terms of how much you got to play outside of game days. I think a team that definitely will improve as they play more together. Past Manchester United, they're sitting in 7th place with just 14 points. A little bit disappointing start to them. I think 11 goals for, 10 against. That's definitely not what you expected from offensively, and probably not as good as you expected defensively. So we played them last night. It was our 3rd straight draw in a Manchester derby in the league. It was a hilarious game. It was fascinating. It was 2-2, just up and down each side. Could have been more goals or less goals for anyone. I think it's just the late additions of guys like Mokro, Italiano. They added Swifties in. There's clearly just gobs and gobs of attacking talent there.
They got talent all over that field. I mean, they got players on defense and offense everybody would want. They're bound to put a good run together, I feel like. It's just a matter of who they're playing when it happens,
They didn't make their second place run to after midway through the season. So, like I said, 2nd place run.
Below them, kind of the last 2 teams right now, they're looking like they can be kind of Super Cup contenders, are going to be Spurs and Lyon, both on 13 points, both with about neutral goal differences. For Spurs, it was all about the early season struggles. They just couldn't score or having trouble getting the points they needed. But they did switch to a 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, I noticed last night. And I wonder if that formation change will kind of make things going forward. And then for Lyon, it was actually a pretty good start. I think they were in 4th or 5th going into last night. But they lost all 3 games, including the Royal Cup match last night. Defensively, they're much improved from last year, which is good to see for them. But all their goals have basically been scored by Leak, and Bidon has essentially set up all the goals to Leak. So I think for both of those teams, I think they're both solid defensively. They got to find goals from somewhere, though, if they come up the table.
And I'll never fully count Lyon out because informed league is a real thing that people have to watch out for. But the problem is that if league doesn't have people to facilitate it and give him the ball, that's where the struggles come in.
Yeah, and I think Spurs they get off to such a rough start. Now you've seen them kind of rebound. So are they now kind of where they're going to be, or is this a team that's going to pick up momentum and push on right up the table? I think that'll be fun to see.
Me and Brazil both kind of agreed that Spurs is going to be a mid-table team this season, whether it's high mid-table or low mid-table, or not low, but like middle of the pack to be decided. But mid-table, like around 8th, 7th, 6th, not 6th, 8th, 7th place is where I see them finishing.
Well, it's still very early. Speaking of mid-table, we've got a few teams that are just kind of solidly making up that place from 10th to 13th. We've got PSG at the top with 11 points, New York City in behind them at 11th with 10. River Plate have 9 points, as well as Juventus have 9 points in 12th and 13th. So I think for me, PSG look like a high-scoring mid-table side. They've definitely rearranged some things this season. We're not just going to say same old PSG, because I can definitely tell that Seha has tried some things he hasn't tried before. Just a lack of consistency for them. We'll see moving forward if maybe this is where they'll end up, or this could be the season where they make the push back up. New York City, this is the introduction for Meet FC. A lot of his players it's an interesting mix of guys who've played a lot of league games and in other leagues other than PCN, and a lot of people that just have never played in this environment. But they've looking at their schedule, they've basically beaten the teams below them and they've lost the teams above them. So I think this is a team that probably will end up mid-table, kind of a first season learning experience. But has anyone played them yet and have kind of a analysis of how they do?
United played them the other day, and I mentioned this on the last podcast. It's a lot of division play style, if that makes sense to most people. Basically, it's a lot of LBYs, a lot of Ys, lots of get it and go offense. Like there's no real build up to it. So when you're playing a team that's higher up, that been here for a while, they know these things, they know how to defend these things. So the offense doesn't really work out that well against those teams.
Yeah, we when we played them, they came straight at us, kind of like Rio just described, and we have a really good defense, so we kind of sat back and absorbed it. And 2 counterattacks in a row, our first 2 times upfield, I think we scored. Their high press was on that day, but it's like you're describing. I'm not saying that they're one dimensional, but at least that day they were. It's straight downfield, and especially in our league with all the good center backs, the really good defenses are going to handle that. So they're probably going to have to find some other avenues to create chances. Otherwise, it might be a long season.
Let's get into River Plate. It's a team that had a kind of rough to start to the season with all the defaults on the first night because of not confirming players. But since then, it hasn't gotten significantly better. 9 points in 6 games is an improvement. That's also mid-table form. So, what are the issues there? Are players going to start worrying about leaving? Are people going to get pissed off if they're not playing because it's either expecting to be on a winning team? I do think they'll definitely push up the table, but I think this is an early season team to watch and what happens with them.
I 100% think they're going to go up the table because San's always been on a winning team or managed a winning team, so can't really see them any other way. But without going into too much detail, I do know from inside sources of players from River Plate's camp wanting to leave, but players from other camps wanting to come back to River Plate. So something to watch out for.
That there are some players actually wanting to leave as well. So it's all about keeping the guys happy and come together. The teams that I've seen fall out in my time here, a short time, are the ones that players started going. Once they started going in and out in the middle of this, it's hard to keep that ship afloat.
Yeah, and I think there's a few teams that are kind of in that boat where I think you just need to get the best out of what you have, and if you can make a couple additions, bring players in that can make the difference, I think that's what you got to do. And that's kind of looks like what maybe is going on at Juventus. Really slow start to the season. I know things were getting a little desperate there. So Juventus was able to actually get their first 2 wins of the season last night against River Plate and Young Boys. Rio, you were one of those guys who decided to move over to Juventus to help them out. So how different did last night seem than kind of the vibes you were getting from before that?
Okay, so basically, before I go into detail, I love being at United, but I got a goal and an assist to help them get the first win. Then we play Young Boys. The play style is interesting. I can definitely notice a difference from when I'm there versus when I played them at United. Not saying that I'm that difference maker, but I think definitely being more confident in the players that you have definitely changes the play style. So I'd say I don't think we'll be this low, but we mid-table finish is where I see us. Maybe getting up to like 9th, 8th place, being realistic.
And I think we're going to see a team in this mid-table this season either win or seriously challenge for one of the cups, because I just think the depth is there that a team, if they get on a run in a cup and they get the right draw, it's not going to have to be a team in the top 2 or 3, I think, this season to win. gonna probably just finish mid-table, or that's kind of their ambition. Like, get yourself on a cup run, get yourself some trouble.
Yeah, this season especially, like, I'm not going to say like anybody could win the title because of results, obviously, but there's too many teams to dictate who's going to win everything. Like, I don't see nobody pulling off the treble. Like, it's too much competition. And one thing I will say, just quick skim through, is I would not doubt, or I would not ever sleep on Vital as a manager. He pulls off some signings that you do not expect. So Juve is a team to look out for, myself included, because you don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, I think all those 4 teams there in that middle of the pack.
What are you saying, Rio?
I'm saying Vital's always in talks. He works in mysterious ways, so you gotta watch out for him.
I'd like to add in about Juve. They have one of the most underrated goalkeepers in Trev Mister. The man's amazing.
Yeah, I think every season there's players that come out of the blue, push a team up. That's one of my favorite things to watch. Being here as long as I have. And then moving on from the mid-table, kind of the lower mid-table teams that should survive for now, but they gotta change some things if they want to kind of move up the table. So Roma in 14th place, team that's got a lot of history together, chemistry. I think with the added depth of the Super League this year, I think 14th is around where they should be able to finish. Don't think they'll be able to push too much higher, but I also don't see them slipping. I think they've got a good enough base there. And then 15th place, Lazio. The defense is definitely top half quality, maybe even top 5 or top 6, depending on who you ask, or it's too early to look at the stats, but definitely the lack of goals and consistent playmaking and scoring is what's keeping them down here right now. So, Capone, is there any kind of improvement in that regard, or is it just sort of like we got to defend and hope the offense comes as we go?
There's definitely been some improvement based on the last match day. We came out and we beat Lyon 2-0, and then we got a draw with River Plate. We moved Ace up top. Things started to click. The ball was moving around more. But yeah, that defense, I don't like to brag, but we're pretty good, because if you take out the Man City and the Man U games, that's 5 goals. We've given up 4 and 6 if you take those 2 out. So I think we can really jump up.
And I would say, as a guy that's played against them multiple times, the defense is legit. Not saying that because I got friends there. The defense is legit. But their problem, which Dorsey mentioned, offense is questionable. I mean, I know, what is it, Capone? You might know this. What is it, 6 goals in 8 games? 5 goals in 8 games?
It's 6 and 8.
6 goals in 8 games. I know you got one of them. AJ got one of them. So they're not even coming from the strikers, really. So that's where the issue kind of lies.
Yeah, it's rough, but we're working on it.
Yeah. So below them is another couple teams, I think. They're probably not as high as they'd like to be. So 16th is Leverkusen, who still haven't quite gotten it going. Cork took over from Darcy after first week, I think after the first 4 games. But the form hasn't really picked up too much. They're putting out pretty much the same kind of lineups. They're trying that 4-1-2-1-2 narrow again instead of the 3-5-2. So looks like most everyone's going to stick around and try to fix this. We've yet to play them, and we beat them, I think, 3-2. And you could just tell defensively, for whatever reason, it's just not clicking like it was last season, even though it's a lot of the same people.
Yeah, from, again, inside sources not saying anything. There's a couple people that are looking to switch clubs, maybe some people that are looking to take a break from the league, whether it's due to the standings, the results, or personal reasons. None of that I know, but I do know that some of it's a shakeup around that I think happened after last night. I just figured this out today. So Sunday will be really interesting to see what they produce. I know they got guys like Evo and Dad Job and Gummy and the talent from last year. Like, the additions plus what they already had, there's no reason why they should be, like, you could say it's a lack of chemistry, but they've been together for a couple seasons since I was there. Yeah. So really don't know.
Yeah, I think they've got it in them to definitely push back up, but it depends on how many people they can keep playing and how long it takes them to get going. And then below them in 17th, Arsenal, they've also got 7 points. It's a lot of the same team. Obviously, they changed managers, but it's a lot of the same team from last season that finished mid-table. But it's a team that did slip in the second half of last season, and that not great form has kind of carried over so far. Not a great couple last game days, playing Spurs, Minnesota, Inter, and Man City, not really getting anything from those. So I think this is a team, I think they definitely have the potential to get much, at least a mid-table, but they got to figure some things out if they want to.
I see them. I see Arsenal at mid-table. There is a mid-table team. I don't know whether you want to chalk it up to high mid-table or just middle of the pack. But like you said, they've had one of the tougher beginning schedules. Spurs, Inter, Minnesota, Man City, Man United. I think they had the couple wins came from the easier teams. So I guess this one's just kind of a wait it out and see what happens type deal. Because they lose into teams that are higher up in the table. So it's kind of the mid-table recipe right here from what I'm looking at.
The one thing I've noticed over Arsenal the past couple seasons is it seemed like when they were making noise in Discord, they were winning. I don't know if it's a swagger or a confidence or something they had about them, but like this season, I don't really hear from them or see them too much. It's almost like they're just laying back and being quiet, and I think it's carrying over to the field almost. Like, I don't know.
It's also highly possible. I don't know this, but it's a possibility that because Arsenal is essentially West Coast, which is a late night team. So it might be that they're putting too much effort into their late night team because it's their brand name. Don't doubt it, but chuck it out as a possibility.
We'll finish off Super League with our 3 relegation candidates so far, who all look not great, and I understand why they're there. So Bayern in 18th place, I think, probably have the most promise of these teams right now. Definitely a good team that shouldn't be in relegation. Had a tough schedule so far, but they also just have not gotten a win yet. It's about time they turn a tough loss or draw into a win. Schalke, nothing is really working. They've conceded the most. They've scored the least. They kind of got their team together a little bit later than they did last season. I think they lost a couple of the key guys they had that did give them a good, strong start to last year. So it's another team that's got to figure some things out. And then Young Boys, unfortunately, they got the last second survival last season, but the offense is struggling. Defense hasn't been much better. Right now, it's going to take a lot, I think, for one of these teams to build their way out of this zone right now.
Me and Brazil mentioned it on the last podcast about the marquee matchup, but Kaz was in that marquee matchup. So, Kaz, what do you think about Bayern?
Bayern, I mean, you saw it. They came at us. It's kind of like what I was referring to with Arsenal, though. It's that swagger, and like there's a lot of players on Bayern that played with the Atlanta guys I have from last season. There's a lot of guys that played with me on New York. So, I know they really wanted to beat us, and maybe that really brought out that fire you need. If they can figure out how to carry that over from game to game, though, they can be very dangerous. But again, like, it's all about consistency. We went out there and beat Juvie at the end of last season with New York, but look where we finished on the table. We couldn't get out there and deliver it every day. So you can do it. They can do it. But it's a matter of turning it into consistency, I think.
So that'll wrap up our Super League coverage for this week. I'm going to move on down to League One. And a little bit of a group, I think, of about 3 look like early title contenders. So Club America sitting in first, 20 points, 18 goals for, 7 against. They're undefeated so far. They've got draws against Chelsea and Lille. Haven't beaten anybody at the top of the table yet. They've got all their wins have been against 8th and below. But definitely a well-rounded looking team. King, how's the season gone for you guys so far?
It's going good, man. I think our main goal is to stay undefeated, especially with the guys that we got now. The biggest difference from last season, obviously, is just having a different manager and having somebody that actually gives a shit. Because the manager that we had at that time, dude, he would just anybody that he found, it would just basically get in. And I got asked a little more than I think somewhere around halfway last season to join, and then I brought in a few players, and we kind of got us out of that relegation zone. And now it's just we kind of took all those toxic people out. And I mean, we're pushing for Super League. I mean, I know we're going to get in there. The issue is whether we're going to be undefeated or not. So that's the 2 things that we're pushing for, really, is Super League and undefeated.
So one thing I've kind of noticed this season in League One is with the promote teams that got promoted last season, and then a couple teams that got moved up. They're really eventually kind of became no clear title favorite for, I think, the most people looking at the league. Do you feel like the league is a little more balanced this season? Like there's not just the 1 or 2 teams that are going to kind of dominate like last season? Do you think it's kind of better for the league that way?
I don't know, man, to be completely honest with you, mainly because even when I brought those few players in last season, players like Veron in defense and then Johnny up top to play striker with me, teams that were on top of the league had a hard time beating us last season. And that was just with the addition of 2 additional players. And then now I feel like I said, it's we're pushing for staying undefeated. I don't think anyone's going to essentially give us a run for the money. Even when playing Chelsea and Lille, I mean, we essentially played them with 8 people, 9 people technically, I believe, 8 or 9 people, and we tied both games. So it's kind of like if we have our full squad going, and if we add the lineup that we can get on Sundays, because Wednesdays usually the iffy times for people because they have school or whatnot. But if we can get that Sunday lineup on Wednesdays, I think we have a better chance of staying undefeated rather than playing on other teams and everything else.
League One, I enjoy watching League One every season because it's growing year by year, but it's growing tremendously. Like the jumps between seasons are amazing, to put it in a way, because there's 3 teams 1 year, 4 teams, and then 5 teams, and it's just the level of competition is just getting better and better.
Yeah, and I think when you first started to see the level of competition increase in League One, it was a lot of players who either did really well in League One, like a lot of the team that was on Liverpool that went to Leverkusen. It's guys that dominated League One for a season, came back, did it again, or it was guys like last season with Tottenham and Minnesota. It's a lot of guys that played Super League had played well there. I think what you're seeing now is less of those guys. I think you're just seeing guys genuinely improving and getting the game time they need in League One to make their teams make themselves better. And I think that's kind of development.
Yeah, plus I feel like there's a lot of people. Yeah, I mean we're close, but I was saying there's a lot of people that didn't play like Super League or League One or League Two or Pro Clubs for that matter that are starting to kind of get into these teams and are finding ways in through either the how you could do it through FIFA on Xbox and kind of find people. There's people scouting and recruiting players through there and just running trials. So I see a lot of that. So I feel like a lot of those good players in FIFA haven't had a chance to kind of transition into PCN, which I honestly feel like it's going to continuously get better, and it's going to be even tougher to stay in Super League or even in League One with all these people that are starting to join now, which is good for you guys, obviously.
If you're looking at the table, I know Kings said they're going for undefeated, but even with that, I mean 1 through 10 can swing pretty quickly on one night if the results go the right way. I know like when Rio and I are working with Will on marquee matchup and stuff, we're constantly bringing up League One matchups that could be great and be very exciting to watch. And I know the one we did the other night was really fun to watch, and it's exciting because when I'm talking to these guys like about like stuff with the managers, admin stuff, they're all really passionate and they're really excited about their teams. And that's how I am with my team. So it's awesome to see.
I think
not.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, not to like spend too much time on like a marquee matchup topic, but it's just like one thing that me, Kaz, Will, all of us that helped decide this, one thing that we noticed is that, in the past, I know this is the first year we've done marquee matchups, but in the past couple of seasons, everybody that like admins and stuff know that it's like League One managers have kind of been more on the quiet side. I know we had our occasional like the title contenders that was very like active, but most of them have been kind of on the quiet side. They didn't really talk that much unless they needed to. This year, when we asked, like, would you be interested in this? Like, everybody's getting a response. Like, they're very interested in it. They want to do it. They're willing to do it. So it's just the growth of a league is it's exciting to watch because essentially it's making everybody's becoming more of a community rather than just, hey, this is a league.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just where Super League was around season 4, season 5, kind of going into 6 around there. That's what's happening now with League One. First season was season 5. This is now the 6th season. I think it's kind of become its own entity. There's teams that are coming back every season that maybe don't get promoted, but they stick around. And you're seeing a lot of the amount of full 11s in every single game compared to a couple seasons ago. It's just been good to see. So, like they were mentioned with that marquee matchup, it was Lille and Chelsea. So. Really good game. Lille won 1-0. Both goalkeepers were really spectacular. And just a really competitive game. So they're sitting there in second, 17 points. And they played 5 of the top 7 teams so far, other than themselves and I think one other. So they've played a tough schedule and they're already in second. So for a team that just got moved up as a second place team in League 2 last year, really, really good start for Lille.
I know their goalkeeper that you mentioned had a really good game, T-Bone. He's a good friend of mine, and I know he's really close with the little guy. So they might not have anything to worry about this, but he was a center back for me at Leverkusen when we won League One. And he's one of those guys. He can play everywhere, really. Like he's one of those utility guys, like myself and some other people around the league. So he's one of those guys to watch out for because he's really good goalkeeper, as you saw. But on any night, he could end up anywhere, given the situation.
So behind them, Real Madrid in a strong third place so far. 16 points, 20 goals for, 5 against. That's the best goals for, the best goal difference in the league. But look at their schedule. They were kind of running up the score on some of the teams lower in the table and struggling a little bit against the teams around them and above them. So I think that's going to be a team that just going to have to – they clearly have the talent with some of the goals and the scores they've been putting up, but they got to figure out a way to get more results out of the top teams, I think, if they want to be in the automatic promotion spots come the end of the season.
I would love to. I don't know any. I know a couple other guys personally, but the majority of the team I don't really know. But just from a club standpoint, I would love to see them get promoted. Like just having Real Madrid back in the Super League where they belong, and for a club that represents them really well, like this club has.
Yep, I've heard there's a lot of Real Madrid fans on that team, guys that really want to get them up. So I think this is the best chance probably Real Madrid's had to get back up to Super League, and since they went down. And then a couple other teams moving into kind of the playoff push contender area. A couple of teams that are looking to get back to Super League are Chelsea and Dortmund there in 4th and 5th. Chelsea looking like promotion contenders at least. They got 14 points, set in 4th place, 1 game in hand. And look at the roster. They've got some really experienced, long-playing leagues guys like Taylor Swift, Messinho, Melky, Ricky Miami. And then a bunch of guys I think of this is like their first kind of foray into the competitive scene. So they got together late as a team. I think they just had a few days to get it together, but strong start for them. Definitely looking forward to how they do. And then Dortmund behind them in 5th. 6 goals for, 4 against. So they're not conceding anything, but they're also not scoring anything. So clearly a good defense there at Dortmund, but they're going to have to figure out a way to get some goals out of that strike force if they want to, stay in this playoff contention.
We had the co-manager of Chelsea on the last podcast, and he mentioned that their team is essentially I think he said the wee ball in divisions club, which would make sense though with the lack of experience. But even the guys that have lack of league experience, Taylor Swift, Messinho, these are great players. But obviously a debut to a league is a different story. And Dortmund, you never count King Snow out. I think I said that last episode. You never count him out. He always has a trick up his sleeve. Or Smurf. My apologies, Snow.
We know who you're talking about.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying we know who he's talking about.
Oh. 6th and 7th, we've got Monaco, 12 points, 18 for, 11 against. So it's an interesting mix of what was last season's Fenerbahce and then some of the guys who were on Santos last year that kind of went to Monaco. Apparently there's a bit of a rivalry developing there between Monaco and Santos. So early on, Monaco looking the better of those two teams just in specific. But, point and a half a game, probably going to have to improve if they want to get in the playoffs, but it's a decent start for them. And then Galatasaray, 12 points as well, 10 goals for, 4 against. They do have 2 games in hand, though. So if they were to win those 2, they would move all the way up to 2nd place. It's a team that finished mid-table last season, was solid, but just kind of lacked the consistency to push on from there. But I think this is a team that if they play well in those makeup games and keep playing like they have, definitely a team I think would look to be in the top 6.
You mentioned this, Dorsey, about teams, like we're getting to the point now where teams that aren't getting promoted are coming back the next year and trying again and trying again. Galatasaray is a perfect example. They was Zenit back in season 8, but then FIFA 19 came out and Zenit's not in FIFA 19, so they became Galatasaray. And so they've been around for 2 full seasons now. This will be their 3rd year, so they'll keep going along. Yeah, this might be their year finally.
I think Monaco is most poised to make that jump because of a recent signing. They brought in Batzer, and on his night, he put up 5 against Genk, and that was a team that was giving up less than a goal per game until that.
Yeah, it's at this level. I think 1 or 2 big transfers in, if you can get them to take your team from good to great, that's what's going to come down to. I think the teams that get promoted.
Yeah, and a striker of Batcher's caliber, definitely a big signing.
Well, after Galatasaray, we've got a few teams just kind of sitting there securely in mid-table. We've got Genk in 8th place on 11 points, Liverpool 9th place on 10 points, and Napoli in 10th place on 9 points. So 3 kind of different stories. Genk, obviously, with a good start, although they fell off a little bit last night. Just looking for that consistent starting 11. That'll kind of determine where they finish, whether they finish around here, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. It's just because you really need that full 11 and that consistent 11, I think, to do it. Liverpool got off to a real slow start, but I think this is a team with a lot of people who played on Liverpool last year. They obviously there was a reason they got relegated, but there's also, I think, a reason that they should be able to push on from here and get in the promotion hunt at some point. And then unfortunately at Napoli, this is the Olympiacos team from last year that went undefeated in League Two. There sounds like there may be some things going on there. They may have to fold, or at least lose a lot of their players. So won't speculate too much on that till we know more. But that's kind of unfortunate to see a team that played so well last season just peter out after 2 weeks in the next season.
Yeah, it's disappointing if that's the case, because out of these three teams, Napoli was the one team I could see making a strong playoff push, because like Dorsey mentioned, the whole Liverpool team, it's a weird story because they have, like, obviously there's a reason why they got relegated, but they have talent to be higher up, but I just don't think there's like a consistency there. And then, gang, me and Brazil mentioned this, it's the fear of not having a full 11. Like, we all play on teams, obviously. Having a fear of not, if you see one bot, it's like everybody has a green light all of a sudden. So it's a fear to not have a full team, because teams will abuse it. So that's my biggest fear with Gang.
I do their stats. I check their stats, man, and I think they've not had 11 once this season. I think it's usually like 7 or 8, man, and they put up solid performances with them. I don't know. Maybe if they're just used to it. I know I can't play.
No, I don't think it's sustainable long term at this level. I think that's what they're gonna learn the longer they play the season. I think they've got enough talent probably to not worry about a relegation battle, but I do think they'll slip down if they don't add to what they have.
Yeah, there's a couple people I know, like in FIFA in general, that are really good at innies, but no matter how you could put the best innie in the world in this like bot, they have to control a bot at the end of the day, and they're not there. Like the bot itself, like the player, like a pro player, like overpowers a bot when a human's controlling it. So that it's not long term.
And then after that, there's 6 teams that are kind of jumbled up in the bottom of the table. So starting with 11th place Santos, only 7 points so far. Shamrock, how's kind of the rebuilding process been going so far this season?
Yeah, so rebuilding Santos this season has been a bit of a challenge, as you might guess, with the last few seasons of the reputation Santos has built up. I think now that we've gotten a lot of people kind of refreshed out of the club and we're trying to bring in new people, which itself poses a challenge because the name Santos doesn't exactly draw on new players. But we've been trying to get some new guys in. We've played with a max of about 5 or 6 guys, including an any, every single game. So to be sitting at 11 is okay for me. Like it's not the best, but we could be doing a lot worse. So I think with the guys we have right now and the chemistry we have on offense, if we can bring in a new defense, that would greatly help us to move up the table.
Can you, without obviously going into too much detail, but can you explain this whole breakdown between the guys that went to Monaco story so it's out in the open and it's all clear?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Basically, me and Untamed Horizon, who's my co-manager, we had like a big core group of like Peter Savage and the rest of the Monaco backline that left. And when we got this club this year, Peter was supposed to be the co-manager. And he basically asked me to bring in his friend to be a center back. And I said, okay, I'll bring him in. And I said, well, if we have practices, I'd like you to rotate out every once in a while while we're practicing so I can see how he plays, because he played the same position. And that was a whole big deal. He didn't want to rotate out because he was co-manager. Like, nothing to do with league matches, just practices. So then they got a few shiny matches, whatever. And I was like, all right, I'll just release you, go separate ways. And then obviously if you've opened the Discord any day of the week, you can see he loves going off in there about it. But so that's basically, it's just a lot of petty nonsense between me and him. Like, I'm over it at this point. They're doing their thing at Monaco, so good for them. But yeah, I think it's just people like that are what has given Santos this really bad name, especially him being one of the people last year that would talk the most in the Discord. So I'm just glad to see us parting ways and try to make a new name for Santos rather than continuing this everybody hates Santos kind of thing where we're just going to talk trash on everybody, but we can't put up the stats to back it up.
Yeah, and like I think I said this in the Discord, but this is my first time ever talking to you, so I wasn't going to disrespect you as a manager. But obviously, managing Santos, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you seem to have a positive mindset about it, so
My hat's off to you though for sticking through and rebuilding this. A lot of managers, as we're possibly seeing coming up, throwing the towel after a little adversity. So good to
Thanks.
see.
I mean, if everyone who played this quit in the first season where things got a little tough, no one would be playing because I think most of us here have had at least one of those seasons in some league somewhere. So
oh yeah.
you really got to learn.
Yeah, mine
You
was
gotta learn
last
about
season with America.
shitty teams sometimes.
Yeah, and hats off to you if you're able to rebuild Santos and turn them around. Maybe next season win the league, get promoted. Like, just turn the image of Santos around.
Yeah,
Hats
definitely.
off to you.
Thanks.
It just takes the one season. I mean, Juventus finished last in season 4, and a few of the guys who ended up, starting that whole team got there late in the season. Season 5 they win the title. Season 6 they win the title. Season 7 they win the title. So that's a team that was a joke, had never had any success. And I'm not saying you guys are going to win trophies in a row, but it just takes one season of a different kind of mentality and a different kind of results to really kind of change people's mind.
Yeah, we've got a pretty solid up top with a lot of chemistry, and those guys are willing to stick around and fight through it, so it should be going in a good direction.
Yeah. And last point, I'm just happy that you're going with a more positive mindset direction than just signing a player because, hey, it's a guy, but he's very toxic. It's like, it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then move on to the rest of the teams down there at the bottom. So we've got Leipzig, 7 points, 12th place. So they did get 2 unfortunate opening day defaults. They just didn't quite get their team signed in time. But they've moved up a little bit since. They've played in some absolutely crazy games. At least one team has scored 3 goals in each of their games. A couple of 3-3s. There was like a 5-1, 4-2. So Leipzig are a team to watch, I think, just in terms of any game could go any way. Barcelona behind them in 13th, really kind of disappointing.
Jeez.
Could this be it for K-City's group as far as promotion goes? I think there's been some rumors of unsettled players there. This is another team people are always clamoring for needs to be in the Super League. Well, they got to earn it.
I'll get to Barcelona in a second. Leipzig, I definitely think that they're on the come up. I mean, I don't know if everybody here knows them, but they had a signing of Mexican Jedi Tony. Been around PCN for the longest. He's a really great player, good friend. Definitely a positive signing for them. For Barcelona, never thought I would see them this low. K said he's a good manager. He's always had a consistent playoff spot team. So from what I know there are a couple players left, like Gaza, who was a team of the season player, left to go to Lyon, challenge himself in the Super League. Good for him. But for what I know, it's most of the same team that was 5th place last year.
Yeah,
so
I think they're kind of like the Leverkusen equivalent of Super League right now in terms of a team that had the experience together and just I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they can bounce back or if this is a team that maybe it's separate ways.
If it don't bounce back, I could definitely see all the Barca fans and PCN go into a tangent about them being so low.
Yeah. And then the last 3 teams in the bottom got Olympiacos 7 points at 14th place. Second most goals conceded, worst goal difference. I think this is a team that's trying to figure things out. Orlando Pirates in 15th place. I think they've got the biggest upside of any team this low. There's definitely a lot of quality on there. It's kind of surprising to see them with only 5 points, but Cream Cheese is kind of learning as he goes. And then Atletico Madrid, 4 points, bottom of the table. They've got 2 games in hand, but they got the hand of the team pretty late. And it seems like they're kind of just getting used to playing in a league atmosphere. We got to see from them kind of how they improve from here.
I mean, I don't know if he is. I think he's just there to help out. But Cream Cheese signing Lego Dog I know he's been busy with school, so he's not really the best overall player. But he's been in PCN for a while. He knows how to play the game. He's a very good player. So it is definitely helping him out. 1 or 2 more signings, not well known, but 1 or 2 more quality signings, and Pirates are back in mid-table. They got the talent for it.
Yeah. Any for you 2 guys who are League One? Are there any teams at the bottom that you think do kind of have that upside to move up once they get things going?
I think
Go ahead, Brody.
I think from playing Barcelona last night, our game was pretty close. We got unlucky in a few chances, but I think watching their team, if they just got a few more things clicking up top, I think they can definitely move up. Like I used to play for Barcelona with K-City, and I know what he's capable of putting together. So I just think once they get those little things going with the same group of guys that they have, they'll probably jump up pretty easily.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing actually, Barca, because of how strong they finished last season. In addition to that, I played with a few other players just in between this season and last season. So I know what they're capable of and I know how good they are. It's so weird seeing them so low because that camaraderie that I built with those people that I played with, and they're just so low. But hey, you never know. I mean, again, it's so early in the season that, as you guys mentioned earlier, it's all about runs. So for all we know, they can catch a crazy run and not lose a game till the end of the season. So don't know what's going to happen. But Barcelona for me is probably the team that I'm looking for, potentially moving up more than anything.
And essentially, what might come down if they stay in this path where they're on the fear of being relegated. A couple of people, one or two, might end up there, like Barca fans or close friends with K City, might leave a mid-table team towards the end of the season and help them out. Because whether you're a fan of it or not, a club like that, you don't want to see them relegated no matter what league it is. And especially if you're close friends with them, people might help him out. But I don't think he needs it, essentially. So I think they'll be fine.
Well, that'll do it for League One. We'll briefly on to League Two since we don't have anyone again tonight. We'll just do our best.
Hashtag League Two matters.
Yep. You guys got to get on, but we won't get into that. So, starting top of the table, Valencia got a really good start. They're in first place, 19 points, 18-4, 7 against. So OG Fears God's a former Super League and League One manager. Brought a lot of experience with him down to League Two. I think it's kind of showing they're undefeated against the top four with 2 wins and a draw the first go-around. So, team that maybe went under the radar a little bit. They kind of got formed a little late, but definitely looking like a title contender as well as 3 kind of teams below them. So, New York Red Bulls, second place, 16 points. They've got 24 goals, 6 against. Most goals, the least conceded so far. But looking at their schedule, because I was wondering, how do they have 26 goals for? So they've had 4 just blowout wins, 3-4 goals or more. And then they've had 4 close games, which were a win, a draw, and 2 losses. So just kind of the basic analysis of that is this is a team that is probably going to beat some bad teams pretty good, and then they're going to struggle to get the results against teams of their kind of quality. Marseille in third with 16 points, 9 goals for, 18 against. Undefeated, 4 wins, 4 draws. So if they can find a way to turn draws into wins, they should push up. And I think the last team looks like they might be in the title race is PSV. Fourth place, sitting on 15 points, 21 goals for, 10 against. This is a team that was relegated last year from Season 9 in League One, but they stuck together, added a couple pieces, and looks like they're trying to bounce right back.
I'd like to add something about Marseille. I've played an extensive time with them. Our striker, Dirty, that's a bunch of his friends, and I spend a lot of nights playing with them. They're a very attacking-oriented group. They like to keep you on your back foot, so they're fun to watch.
I mean, Dorsey, you remember him. OG Fury's the old Tottenham manager so even though his last stint as the manager didn't end well with them getting relegated, he has the experience. So it's too early to call them the title favorites, but just off experience alone, that would be my guess. I know Red Bulls is a lot. They're a divisions team. Like Kaz mentioned about some other teams in the Super League, I think they do better when they talk, because they definitely talk a lot, and the results are showing that.
Mid-table, a couple teams are just sitting there very comfortable. Porto, another team that got relegated but stuck together after last season. Looking more competitive, 12 points, just solid. I think them and Besiktas below them also on 12 points, who had a really good run in the preseason cup. Just they got to up their game a little bit against the better teams to really have a chance of pushing into that promotion race. But, if they just all they do this season is sit in there in 5th and 6th and learn the league system and learn how to play with each other, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And then below them, Sporting in 7th place, Fenerbahce in 8th, CSKA Moscow in 9th, and Ajax in 10th. Just kind of figuring it out. The results haven't really gone their way so far.
I know.
Speculate on their issues unless someone has some insight.
Yeah, I got 2. This is as far as my reporting skills have gone. I know Moscow has had some inner fighting, like players and managers not getting along. Manager posted a release today for 5 or 6 players. So I don't know if he had a core set up already, but it looks like a rebuild from the ground up. And Ajax, the manager and the co-manager are close friends. They're very committed to it. So it's not a team that you'll see folding anytime soon. But they talk more than what their results have been shown. So I wish them the best, but it's brand new. They're brand new to like managing, so they don't have like the know it of players to bring in like a full 11 immediately. So it's first manager or first season manager struggles is all I think it is with them.
Yeah, and I think you're still seeing that. I think there's a few less teams that are completely new for League Two this year. I think there's more teams that have the experience, more teams that have chemistry. But I think you're going to see a few of the teams at the bottom of League Two. I think for the next season or two, be teams that are just kind of just getting their feet wet, just learning it, trying to get defenders on, trying to get a decent goalie. Just all those things that happen when you start off in pro clubs and you don't get lucky enough to sign for an established kind of team.
Yeah, like the top three in League Two are, or it's actually the top four. They're either PCN teams that have been there for a while or divisions teams that have gotten into a league together. Everybody below them, well, Porto as well. They've been in PCN, but all the other guys are new to the league. They don't really know anybody, and they're figuring out. I know the Fenerbahce guy personally. He's a really nice guy. He's figuring things out as he's going along. So I don't see too many like changes going on this season. Just teams figuring it out.
Yep. And if you want us to talk more next week, accept the invite.
Respond to my messages.
Well, I think that'll pretty much wrap things up. We'll go over the Royal Cup next week after the group stages and kind of preview the early looks at the knockouts rounds for that. Also, just want to let everyone know that we are going to have an article coming out on the esportsworldfootball.com. There'll be some new stuff about a new logo for PCN, a couple interviews, kind of some fun stuff for you guys to look at. So we'll have all those links obviously on the forum and in the Discord once that comes out. Should be out tomorrow. That's all I've got. Anybody got any final thoughts before we get out of here?
In case you didn't watch the marquee matchup from last night, I would tune in for Sunday. We have the Milan derby of AC versus Inter. So if you're interested in watching that, it's a highly recommended game for me.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Seeing AC Milan at the top of the tables does a little warm thing to my heart. So, yeah, well, thanks guys for coming on, and we
Thanks
will.
for having me.
Yeah,
so
thanks for having me.
Week.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck to everybody in this next week of games. See you guys next time.